Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is Sean Knudsen. Sean is an Army veteran who has transitioned into consulting with veterans, entrepreneurs, and businesses. And we're going to chat with him a little bit about the types of stuff that he does in just a minute. But first, I want to welcome you to the show, Sean. Really glad to have you here.
Hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate doing this. It's a great opportunity to get this message out. And thank you for what you're doing. I really support anyone who's helping veterans. It's sometimes they're a tough nut to crack. We get so hardened by the military. Sometimes it's hard to be open to new ideas. So I think it's really great what you're doing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we're a bunch of hard-headed individuals,
Exactly.
aren't we?
Yeah, some of the toughest crowds to work with are veterans.
Yeah, right. And trying to get them to, kind of change their ways or change their way of thinking sometimes can be really difficult. And a lot of times we need to get out of our own way. We're our own, biggest enemy sometimes when we are standing in our own way with, whatever it is that we might have going on. Sometimes we just need to, shut up and listen to some advice. And so hopefully that's what we're going to do today.
Absolutely.
Let's take it back just a little bit and tell us a little bit about your background in the Army. What was your role? Where were you stationed?
Okay.
Types of things that you did there.
So I was in the Army National Guard. So I joined the National Guard after 9/11 and spent most of my time as what we call an M-Day soldier. And then we deployed to Iraq. And then when I came back, I went to work for a federal SWAT team. And so it was a civilian SWAT team under the Army. And so my civilian job was working for the Army. Then I was in the National Guard as well. And then I did go on orders. I was an instructor for I guess they called it WLC back then, Warrior Leader Course, for those of you in the Army. And I did that for a couple of years. And I was a 13 Bravo for about 3/4 of my career. And then I transitioned to, I got the 13 Fox MOS. Well, I got the 13 Fox MOS quite a while ago. And then I transitioned into a 13 Fox position for the last few years and then I'm currently retiring out of the Guard. So that's why I have the beard and my I went to drill 2 months ago and I had to paste my hair to my head so nobody noticed that I was growing it out. But being in the Guard was a unique experience because not only did we go on federal deployments, we were a part of things like Hurricane Katrina. So I was there for a month in New Orleans. And so we do a lot of these homeland security. I've been on a presidential security detail, fires, floods, the riots, like all kinds of homeland security missions, as well as the federal missions. Yeah. So it's been an interesting career. It's been pretty fun and I've learned a lot and I've had a great time.
Yeah. The National Guard, a lot of times I was in the National Guard as well. A lot of times the National Guard gets a kind of a bad rap amongst the military, right? Not in a bad way, right? But we all like to tease each other, right? And it's a lot of fun,
I thought that until, serving with active duty units, like in Iraq, they don't know anything we don't know. It's like they just do it all the time. And it was interesting as an artillery unit, talking to other like active duty artillery units, we actually fired as much as they did, like live fire. They didn't fire any more than we did. And, but when they were hanging out, cleaning the guns, we went and did our jobs.
So they were taking care of the gear for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have our own gear, but
yeah, sure.
It's just interesting to see the different dynamic of it. And, the great thing about the Guard is that we bring a lot of, so like I was on a federal SWAT team. So
Hmm.
like when I go on these missions, like, hey, look, I also, like, I was a, sniper entry team leader, ended up with SWAT commander on a federal SWAT team. So that's a lot of skills that I bring to, if I deploy to some
That's right.
Homeland Security mission or whatever. There, and we got a lot of cops, a lot of, anything. There's just a lot of variety that comes to uh, a mission when the National Guard goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the points I was going to make is that the National Guard and the reserves, they have just such a diverse uh, array of backgrounds versus active duty, where a lot of times guys are and ladies are they're joining, right out of high school, and they go and they learn whatever their MOS is, they learn their job, and that's kind of the extent of the career training that they've had. Not knocking that at all,
Right.
because they do a
Yep.
great job, right? But I guess to that point, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the National Guard, you have your military career training, for whatever your MOS happens to be, but then you also have your civilian job. So you might have, like you in your case, a SWAT team, law enforcement. You might have mechanics. You might have doctors. You might have, you know, all sorts of different backgrounds in the same unit. And think about when you're deployed, whether it's stateside for a homeland security type thing, natural disaster, riots, that type of thing, or deployed overseas. Think how useful that uh, unique set of skill sets. I don't think any two National Guard units are going to have the same set of skill sets, just because there's so many different jobs out there, right? So
Yep.
you get so much variety, and that comes in handy real quick when things start going south.
Yeah.
Like, hey, well, we got this mechanic who can now take a look at these trucks and figure out what's going on with them.
Yeah.
So we don't have to wait for the army mechanics to show up and
Yeah.
fix them or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
like that
A
that
big
that
thing.
kind of thing is awesome. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. A big thing with us was a lot of construction people.
Oh,
So like
okay.
when we were in Iraq, we could get materials, like we could put in an order for some plywood, 2x4s, saws, and all of a sudden we're building all kinds of stuff, and that other units probably didn't have the skills to do,
Sure.
because we had contractors in our, hey, you want us to build a house? Let's build a house.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's a good point. We had someone like that too. We had an area that we frequently were at. It was right on the Pakistan border in Afghanistan, and we were out there, exposed to the elements, the sun, the rain, and all this kind of stuff. And this guy went out, he got a bunch of like plywood and stuff. And he went out one day and he just built a shelter over this thing and made it so we didn't have to be in the direct sunlight or in the rain or
Yep.
whatever. And so it
Absolutely.
just made it that much easier.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
not to say an active duty person couldn't figure that out, but
Right.
it's just in their skill set. So it was just, top of mind. Hey, I could do this. This is easy, you know?
Yeah, we had, they always want to make fun of the Guard too. So in Iraq, when we would work, because, we work side by side with the active duty
Yeah.
units, and and at first they were making fun of us. And as we got to know them and we kind of told them, mentioned like the benefits available to that Guard, and someone would get pissed. My recruiter never told me about this stuff.
That's because you went to
It's,
an active duty recruiter and
yeah,
not a guard recruiter, right?
it was really funny
Um,
though.
so okay, so you're saying that you're getting ready to retire from the National Guard, right?
Yeah.
Or already
Yeah.
have. I'm not sure if I caught you right.
I'm not officially retired, but I'm not going to drill anymore.
Got it.
So I'll
Okay,
be officially retired next month.
got it. Okay, so this transition, is this something that you saw coming and kind of had time to plan for, or is this kind of like oh crap, now what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What are
Yeah.
you looking for with this transition?
So the kind of the reason it happened, I always told everyone, always asked when I was going to retire, because I've got 23 years in, and I just said, as long as I'm having fun, I'll keep doing it. My last unit, I am currently with the 4th Infantry Division. They have a small unit here in Utah, a bunch of jobs that they just said, we don't need these jobs full time.
Mhm.
But when we deploy, we want to keep these assets. So they farmed them out to the National Guard. The Utah picked them up. And so I'm a 13 Fox in that unit. So we actually just deployed with, so the fourth ID just deployed to Poland this last year.
Okay.
And so just when they go, we go with them. We go over and we train with them over there, and so it's been fun. Like I was the platoon sergeant over. It was the combat platoon within our National Guard unit here in Utah. So we had 11 Bravos, 13 Foxes, 12 Charlies, um, and so we would just basically, we were autonomous. We would come up with our own drills, and so we would get, the shoot houses, the helicopters, like pretty much whatever we wanted. Our commander, who is a colonel, he's former infantry, and or not for, I guess he's currently infantry, but he came up 11 Bravo, and so we would bring all these ideas to him, and he was like, "Love it, let's do it, go kick ass!" Like, and so we would bring along some of the intel analysts and different things to kind of teach them, and it was just fun. We just came up with, it's so fun to do it because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah.
Like, so we do these 8 mile rucks and things like that, and it's a lot more fun when you're coming up with the idea rather than, hey, you got an 8 mile ruck next week. Like, oh, that sucks. But
Right.
it's been fun. It's all these guys they're young, they're motivated and excited. And so I always said, as long as I'm having fun, I'm going to stay in. What really happened is kind of getting into this consulting and coaching arena. I am going to seminars and retreats all the time. And the scheduling just became too much.
Mhm.
Like the reason I'm not going to drill is because I have a business retreat that I'm going to that conflicts with drill. Same thing last month. And I was just like, this is just happening more and more. And it's just not making sense to stay in the guard anymore. So it's time to move out. So that's the reason I did. And obviously being in the guard, it's not a huge transition because basically I'm just going to stop going. But in 2014, I left active duty and just went to a drill status. So that was the biggest transition for me. Was that I had started a business that I was doing on the side, and my side business was making as much as my full-time business. So I thought, well, it doesn't make sense to keep. So that's when I was a WC instructor. It's like, it doesn't make sense because they wanted me to keep doing it. They wanted to renew my orders for the next year. And I was like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense where I'm making as much money on the side business. So the first month that I left active duty, I had doubled my income. So then I was like, yeah, this definitely was the
That
right
makes sense.
choice.
Right.
But some of the things that I see with it has been a struggle, and honestly, the biggest struggle was when I got home from Iraq. When I got home from Iraq, going to civilian, that was the biggest struggle. And when I see things military, we become like very institutionalized in our thinking. We become so programmed to do what they tell us to do and to stay within these lines, our left and right limits, that sometimes I think it's hard to get out into the civilian world, and all of a sudden you have this kind of freedom of thought, freedom of action. Like, what do I do? Like you, and so I think that that's one of the things that for me personally that I've struggled with going from military to civilian, and especially going into starting a business, because I think a lot of times, you look back and there's so many fun times in the military, and some of the funnest times were the worst times. Like,
Yeah.
you look at the time, it was just miserable. And you look back at it, you run into your buddies and you're like, do you remember that night? We didn't have any sleep and we were freezing. We were sitting in the back of that 5 ton and we couldn't find the AO, and we were driving around for hours and we had no commo with anybody. And wasn't that funny? And you're like, at the time it was miserable. And, but we, we're, we have buddies and friends or battle buddies that we're doing things with. And then when we leave the military, some of the things that I see we lose is that connection. We
Yeah.
just don't have the connection that we had in the military. And then we lose that purpose. Because in the military, obviously, we have our 5 order the op order. We have the commander's intent. We have everything laid out for us. That is our purpose. We live or die by that commander's intent. And then we get out into civilian world. We don't have our buddies, and you wake up and go, what am I doing? Like, I mean, I guess I'm going to go to Home Depot and go work today, but what's my purpose? What's my mission? What's my vision? And I think that that's one of the things that we tend to miss a lot in the military, not to mention some of the mental health issues that we have also, from Iraq, from some of this institutionalized thinking, I think can have some negative effects on our mental health. And
Mhm.
so kind of letting go of a lot of those things are some of the challenges that I have personally faced, and that I really strive to help other people with. Oh, that was kind of a roundabout answer to your question.
No, it's a good answer though, I think, because there are a lot of people who are getting either transitioning out of the military altogether. I know in a National Guard transition, it's a lot easier because you tend to have that civilian job already lined up, and so it's like, okay, you just stop going to drill, and your weekend frees up. Like that's the transition is
Yeah,
you get
yeah,
one more weekend a month that you don't have to go. You could do whatever you want. You could drink beer. You can
yeah,
go do whatever you want. So that's on the National Guard side, there is that transition. But you did mention a good point. There is with coming back from a deployment, there is a transition there too, because you are on an active status while you are deployed, and you're out doing stuff that most people aren't willing or able to do themselves, and you see some stuff that could be uh, you know pretty hairy, and when you get back, now you gotta kind of deal with that and deal with civilian life as well, and it's like there's a lot going on there. So
yeah,
um,
yeah, absolutely.
so
It's hard to. There's, despite what you've, politically your feelings on, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever you did over there, it it was a meaningful thing because even you're looking out for your buddies, you're
yeah,
following these orders, you're doing what you're doing has value, and if you screw it up, big consequences can happen. And so another aspect I think is getting into the civilian world and trying to find, how do I have that same kind of meaning and impact on my life and the lives of people around me. And you mentioned the National Guard, you just quit going to drill. And obviously that's the fun part. I think the hard part with drill, though, even with the National Guard, is that that's such a part of your identity.
it does become that.
Like now I'm growing the beard, I'm growing the long hair. Like, who am I without being a soldier? And so that's to me the hardest part is kind of letting go of that identity, I guess, that connection that I am a soldier. Like I even I just always think of myself as a soldier, and so there is a little bit of some sadness, some emotions with letting go of that. You're not seeing your buddies every weekend, and you're taking off the uniform for the last time. When
Yeah,
I walked out of the building, my last time in uniform, I saw a major, and I saluted him, and it was one of my old platoon leaders from like 12 years ago. And so I saluted him, and I said, "Congratulations, sir." I said, "That's my last salute." And he's like, "Oh, really?" He says, "Yeah, I'm retiring next month. This is last time in uniform." He's like, "Well, I'm glad I got to return your salute." And so it's kind of cool that it was him. And then
yeah,
I heard it, ran to my car so I didn't run into any other officers.
yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of cool. But it's something that it kind of hit me when I did that salute, that's my last time
Yeah,
saluting.
yeah, and it does hit you. It's almost like a light switch. Like all of a sudden, you've been this soldier for so long, and then you flip that switch, and then boom, now you're not. You take that uniform off, and there's some pride, when you wear that uniform, and
Yep.
knowing that you're not going to be putting it back on again. In any official context, it kind of is a hard thing to go through. Even if it is National Guard and it's a 1 week in a month kind of thing. It's not your full time thing. It's still uh, a part of you, and so that is kind of tricky. I think
It is.
for a lot of people as they're transitioning out, and they may not even realize it, until they get to that point, and then they're like, "Holy crap! I wasn't expecting this," Um, so let's talk about the consulting work, the stuff that you do now, and talk about kind of what it is that you do, and where did you kind of come up with the idea for what it is that you do, and did the military have any influence on it, or anything along those lines, and kind of just fill us in on that.
Yeah. So I started my first business at 24 years old. It was a construction business. Did really well. Did that up until 2007 when I deployed to Iraq. And when I came back, if you remember, in fact, in 2007, I was doing a subdivision and had just dug the hole for the first house. And while I was on a track hoe, I got a call from my unit, "Hey, you're being deployed to Iraq." And so I turned the tractor off and I sat there and thought, well, shit, what do I do now?
Yeah,
And
right.
so I talked to the bank, and the bank's like, "Hey, we want to help you. We want to support you. You're a soldier." And so they said, "We'll just keep everything. You can pay this minimum payment. When you get back, we'll just pick it up right where you left off and build the houses and do the subdivision." Well, fortunately, all kinds of people, because I had all the permits, I had everything done. Like, it was ready to go. And so a lot of people were contacting me because this was still within the bubble, and they wanted to buy the development. And so I ended up selling it while I was in Iraq. And the guy that bought it built the first home, and then the bubble crashed. And he ended up moving into that house, and the rest of the homes didn't get built for like another 10 years.
Oh man.
And it was like, it was perfect. So, but when I came home, and I got into construction again, I just picked up my business like I did. And boy, it was tough. It was tough. There
Yeah.
was not much work, and the pay was really little. So I was like, well, maybe with my military experience, I can go do something else. So I found this opportunity to get on this federal SWAT team. So I did that, and then I did that for 8 years, and then that job ended. And because it was only we were getting rid of chemical weapons, and so they had a security force with the SWAT team. And once the chemical weapons are gone, the job was gone. So then I went. That's when I went active duty with the Guard to be an instructor for WLC. I think they call it BLC now, Basic Leader Course. And while there, I got into dog training. So when I got back from Iraq, I was struggling like everybody does, some anger issues, some PTSD. And I got a puppy, and I started training the puppy. And I was actually getting frustrated with the puppy. I'm like, this stupid dog is like crapping everywhere and peeing and won't stop barking. So I worked with a professional trainer, and working with that dog really helped me relax. Like, it helped me to calm down, to deal with civilians better, because I realized if the puppy makes a mistake, it's my fault. It's not the puppy's fault. I was expecting too much. I wasn't clear. Whatever it was my fault. I was just, trying to do too much too quickly. And that helped me to be more patient with my kids and with civilians. So I got more and more into training, ended up winning a national championship, and then started a dog training business. And the dog training business did really well. I started it with a partner. We were, making, we got up to where we were making about 2 million a year,
Oh wow.
and with about $400,000 overhead. So it was a pretty lucrative business. And then, money creates problems, and, you can become a victim of your own success. And I've had this happen I've started quite a few businesses, and I've had it happen where you kind of become a victim of your own success. We ended up parting ways, and I've always done really good at starting businesses, and then they get to a point I never knew how to get, because I get to the point where I told people it's like golden handcuffs. Like, the business was doing so well that I was making a lot of money, but I always felt trapped. Like, I had to be there constantly, putting out fires, dealing with employees, dealing with clients, and I never knew how to get to that next step where I find someone else to deal with that stuff, because I never was able to. I just didn't find people that I could trust, and so I would actually sell businesses, let go of businesses, start over with different businesses, because I just didn't like that feeling of being trapped
Hmm.
and stuck with those golden handcuffs. And so then I had the idea, and through my military career, I was always working with young soldiers, and in the guard, a lot of them wanted to start businesses. So I would basically coach people for free, because I'd be like, well, I've started multiple businesses. Let me help you. So I helped a lot of young businesses, or young soldiers, start businesses. And I loved it. I absolutely loved coaching them, helping them. And so then I thought, you know what? I love starting businesses. Why don't I help people start businesses? Because that's what I'm good at. I love it. So I'm working right now with he's a Marine, former Marine, that he's an archer, and he's like one of the top archers in the nation, but just didn't know how to turn it into a business. He's coached a bunch of celebrities on shooting, and just really great exposure, but just didn't know how to turn it into a business. So he's been working with me, and it's been fantastic to see how, or help him to see how to take what he's already doing and then just find that purpose, that direction, find out what skills he's lacking. Because when I started looking into getting coaching myself, one of the biggest things was I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
So I have a coach, telling me something like, "Oh my goodness, I never thought about that." Yeah, I've always struggled with that. I never thought about that. Back when I was starting businesses, there was no internet. You could get a book, and other people in your industry didn't want to give you their secrets. So it was literally everybody was trial and error, and you just try not to screw it up. And if you go to college, which I went to college for construction management, and your professors, and the same thing in the business industry, are generally people who have not done the business. So you have a business professor that's never started, owned, or run a business, but they're teaching you how to do it. So that's what you had back in the day. Obviously, now we have a lot more information. We have the internet. And, in my opinion, everybody should be a coach. When you do something well, you should coach somebody else. That's how society has run for millions of years, depending on your belief on how long we've been here. You would Someone would become a good hunter and would take the young boys out and teach them how to hunt. He was a coach. That's what everybody should become, a coach, if you do something well.
Right.
And then 200 years ago, you would go be an apprentice. Hey, this guy's a great shoemaker. I want to do that. So you go be an apprentice, and he coaches you. So that's all we're doing today, is that once you do something well, you should, especially as you have the experience and you get up in age, I think it's a great thing for everybody to do, is to coach someone else to get the results that you've gotten. So that's what I decided I wanted to do, and I absolutely love it. And then I don't have to worry about getting stuck in this business where I'm getting frustrated, because like I'm just here all the time and I'm making great money, but I don't know how to maybe get out of that situation. And honestly, I know my place. I'm great at starting businesses. Once a person is making, and I've helped like 25 people start businesses that are making $100,000 personal income. That's what I'm great at.
Hmm.
Beyond that, I will send you to other coaches that I've worked with, because that's not what I'm great at. I'm not great at scaling a business, from, let's say you're making 500 grand a year to 5 million a year. That's not my expertise. I would love to get there, and hopefully I will, but I'm great at getting to that 100,000 personal income with your business.
Sure. Sure. And it's great too. And I think your point is about being a coach and how everyone should coach other people. Um, I think everybody has something that they're good at, and some people maybe they haven't discovered what that something is. But once when you have discovered that thing, hey, I'm pretty good at fill in the blank, whatever it is. Um,
Yep.
why not share that with other people? I mean, you're not you know you don't have these secrets that are like nobody else in the world has ever thought to start a business, right? Like in your case, right? It's
Yep.
it's not like you're guarding any closely, guarded secrets here. It it's
Yep.
you're just good at it, and so you're taking uh, all the hassle and all the headaches out of that initial, maybe first couple of years of a business to get it up and running, and all the stuff that goes into it. Um, a lot of times, if you don't know, like you said, if you don't know what you don't know, it's going to be a whole lot harder to start that
Yeah.
business, right?
Yep.
So so when folks are coming to you to start their business, uh, talk to us about what that process looks like. Are you helping them vet ideas? Like sometimes someone may come to you and say, "Hey, I got a what they think is a great idea," and then it turns out it's like, "Yeah, well, maybe that's not such a great idea." Like they're
Yeah.
you know uh,
Yep.
just haven't
Yeah.
thought it
And
through.
also,
Do you work with them on that?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with all of that, I also help even if someone has an existing business, because a lot of times the things I didn't realize that I didn't really need to quit, I could have like pivoted. So
Hmm.
sometimes you can make some changes in your business and find and have it be the much more fulfilling than maybe what you're experiencing now. So I do help with that as well. And I help businesses with leadership, from my military and SWAT and business experience. But the one of my big things is making sure that you're in alignment, that the job or the career or the business that you want to start is in alignment with your purpose, your values, and your lifestyle. Like, do you want to have a brick and mortar location? That some people do. Some people want a warehouse that I can go and I'm kind of the king of my castle. I walk in and I know everybody's name and they know me, and and I slap high fives with everybody. Some
Right.
people want to have a business where, like this, it's you're talking through Zoom and you can do it from anywhere in the world and you're traveling around. And so there's all kinds of different ways to do different things. So even the same business can be done in a lot of different ways. So just finding, first of all, finding what your values are. So there's exercises that I go through to help you find your values and your the purpose, like what gives you fulfillment. Like, is it helping people now? Is it, are you looking for something that's you want to have something that's going to carry on for generations? You want something that you can pass down to your kids? Like, what is it that's the most important to you? And then your lifestyle. Like, is it, if those things are not in alignment, you will not be happy. I've been there. I've been in businesses where I was making a lot of money, and but it wasn't in alignment with my values and my lifestyle, and I was not happy. And that's, I've been in situations where I self-sabotage. Like, I don't want this to do well. I for the last So I took a couple years off pretty much. I kept my business, but I had my business like scaled down, my dog business, to where I was making 20 grand a month, and that's all I wanted. And with that, I could work 4 hours a day and make 20 grand a month. And when I had all the business I needed for that, if somebody called, I would hope it was a telemarketer because I didn't want to take any more business on. And but I was spending 10,000 a month on at that time on coaching, on seminars and retreats, and so I did not want to make any more, or I would be fine with money. I didn't want to do any more work because I wanted to focus on all the things that I wanted to learn. And so at that time, that was the lifestyle that I wanted. But if I had gotten swamped and made 3 times that money, I would have gotten burnt out. I would have been tired of it. I would have started to self sabotage. So I knew for this time, I just need to keep this threshold
Hmm.
because I don't want to, I want to focus on what's important to me. And at that time, it was studying, learning, writing, working on a lot of these things. So helping an individual find those things out for themselves, that can save you years and thousands, possibly millions of dollars.
Yeah,
If you can, because it's something that you love now can become a monster later on.
that's right.
Like like I found that out. Like, I got into construction because I loved to build. I thought it was fun. I loved to build houses. And then I got to the point where I'm 15 20 employees and I'm building 3 different houses at one time, and I'm not building, I'm running from job to job all day long putting out fires.
That's
Like,
right.
hey, this crew screwed up this window, and I'm like going there dealing with that. And hey, this the other foreman's like, hey, the owner's wants to change this or that, and I hated it. I was
Yeah.
making good money, and but I hated it. I hated dealing with the all the employees. I hated dealing with the clients. Like, I just, it was frustrating.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's something that you kind of have to do a little soul searching to see what is your tolerance for that type of stuff,
Yep.
because you might be, in your case, you might be really good at building houses, or building things in general, or you might be a really good baker and you want to open up a bakery, or you might be a really good, I don't know, whatever else. You might be really good at some other thing. But then when you start that business, you find that you're now you're now managing the people who do the thing that you're really great at and the thing that you really love to do. You're managing those people, and you get to watch them watch them do it. And yeah, of course, there's going to be occasions where you go in and you do that work too, but it's not, you're going to be doing more of the managing of that type of work than the actual work, if the business starts growing and you start adding employees and all that kind of stuff, right? You keep it small and it's just you, and you're the guy who's doing the stuff. Maybe a little bit harder to do when you're building houses to do that solo, but for other things, maybe there is just a 1-2 person small operation, where you can do that. um, fine, you'll be doing the stuff that you enjoy, but it's not going to take away the fact that there's other stuff that businesses need to do. They need to, manage their books. They have to, do their taxes. There's, messes that need to get cleaned up, and they got to, take the time to do all that kind of stuff. And it's not
Yep.
necessarily the work that you want to be doing. And so, instead of hiring an accountant and getting a janitor, or all of those kind of things to help support you in your business, you're now wearing all those hats and you're trying to keep all those plates spinning. And it could get to the point where you're burnt out. I had a business a couple of years ago that I ended up selling, and it got to the point where I was just burnt out of all the other stuff that kind of went along
Oh
with
yeah.
running the business. And um, to the point where I just felt like I didn't care about it anymore. Like I
Yep.
love doing
Oh
it,
yeah.
the doing the work, um,
Yep.
but it was all that extra stuff that I was just like, ugh, this sucks, and I don't want to do this. And so now I know this about myself, and now I know what not to do in the future. What type of business do I not want to get
Yep.
into. And
Oh, absolutely.
it's good to have somebody there to help you think through these things that you may not see coming down the road
Yeah.
if you haven't done a business before yourself, or even if you have, you may not see what's over that next hill. And
Yep.
so having a coach to walk you through that kind of stuff, I think, is important, um, because maybe they can help, uh, you know s- still get you into that business,
Yep.
but think about ways that you can mitigate some of the stuff that you don't want to do, um,
Yep.
and figure out how can we get you to do this type of work without having to do that kind of stuff that you don't want to do. And there's always going to be stuff that you don't want to do, but kind of
Yep.
minimizing it, right? And making it so it's not the bulk of your day every day for you know the rest of time. You want to make it so that, yeah, when those things pop up, okay, I'll deal with those when they come up, um, once a month, or twice a month, or something like that. But it's not an everyday occurrence, kind of
Yeah.
thing. And that, I think, is important. And it could be something as simple as, okay, well, hire somebody to do that type of stuff for you. If the business can afford to hire that type of person, whatever the work happens to be, then that's a solution. But then it gets into, like you were saying before, now you have people that you have to manage. If you're not into that, then maybe you need to hire a manager that manages those
Yep,
people. I don't know.
that's
There's
absolutely
so many
right.
different permutations of what could happen here.
Yep.
But it's important to kind of know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your wants and desires, and all that kind of stuff. And um, yeah, starting a business, I've been there. You get that rush of adrenaline when you get this idea. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this. I'm gonna
Yep.
start this business, and I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be on top of the industry, whatever industry it is, and I'm gonna do all these great things.
Yeah.
Then reality smacks you in the face and like, no, the hell you're not.
Yeah, and if you can, if you like you say, if you can get some guidance, and for me, it's that discovering process, like getting very clear about exactly what you want. And I even, when I work with clients, to the point that, let's talk about, so we discover your ideal lifestyle. Like, do you want to travel the world? Do you want to, like, what kind of home do you want to live in? What kind of cars do you want to drive? And then we do an exercise where we figure out how much that's going to cost.
Mm,
And then, okay, what's the taxes going to be on that? And then I have a process where I go through and we do 10% to, to donations, 10% to long-term savings, short-term savings. 10% goes to coaching and education, basically education and wellness. And so we figure out all of this and say, okay, well, this is what we need to make. And so then we kind of design a business, a lifestyle, and we do some like manifesting in there, some setting these as goals and things that we're going to work on to achieve that, whatever it is that person decided that that's absolutely what they want. So getting clear on that lifestyle, that what's that lifestyle going to cost, and then how can we build a business around that.
yeah,
And that's kind of where I go. And then from there we go down to we get to the nuts and bolts. So like, coming up with the name of your business, getting that same name across all social media platforms, make sure the domain is available. Like I have a 25-step process that just goes through all the legal issues, getting it registered with the state, your LLC, all these different things. And then once that's done, then we work on getting data. So one of the big things for me as a coach is I need data. Like, if the worst thing that happens is if I work with somebody that week and then they didn't do anything the next week because I have no data, I would rather have them screw something up and say, hey, I tried to do this, it didn't work, and perfect. Let's look at the data.
right.
What did you receive from this? And then we have something to work on, because if you don't have that, then you have nothing. And for me, one of the most important things a coach can do is help someone to be empowered. And this is the same thing in the military, same thing in the civilian world. As a leader, we need to empower those people that are underneath us and encourage them to come up with new and inspired ideas. So I've worked with coaches that they felt threatened if I came up with something on my own and then did it, because the idea didn't come from them, and they have to justify what I'm paying them. So some of those coaches, I've worked with a couple that were like that, and we parted ways because that's not what I'm looking for. So for me as a coach, I really encourage them to you know to take bold action and to come up with, to have these kind of great inspired ideas, and then act on them boldly. And that's what I encourage them to do every week. And then we just talk about, okay, how did it go? And if it didn't work, that's fine. Data, we just need data. We don't need everything to be successful. We
Right.
need data so that we can then grow and use that to figure out what we're going to do this week.
Yeah. And that data that you're talking about is super important. A lot of times people look at things not going right as a failure, like, I screwed this thing up. It's never going to work, whatever. But that data will help you to identify the things that don't work, so you don't do those again. Don't waste any more time or money or effort on those things that don't work, and try something else and see
Yep.
if that that thing will work. I think I think it was Thomas Edison, I think, uh, who was quoted as saying, "I've uh, something." I'm going to butcher the quote, but something like, I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways that don't work." You know,
Yeah, that's
and
right. Yep, I
you know,
remember
and
that.
so it's not it's not a failure. It's just like, hey, I tried this thing. It doesn't work. Okay, don't do that again.
Yeah.
Easy, you know.
And along those lines, it's tough too because it is a balancing act. Because you do get people that say if you're digging for water, you don't dig down a foot, oh nothing, and then so you dig 1,000 holes at a foot. Sometimes you gotta like give some things a chance, and that's where kind of an experienced coach can help. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I think you're onto something here, but I think rather than dig 1,000 holes, pick one thing and let's go deep with it and see if we don't hit the water. And so it's kind of that balancing act of, like, is it time to give up on this
Mhm.
or did I not give it a chance? And so kind of getting some feedback. The other thing about coaching that's great is a lot of times we already know so many things that we don't do. For me personally, like there's things that I know I could do better right now today in my life that I'm not doing, but I have coaches that I'm accountable to, and so I know that they're going to ask me about, the things we talked about. How did you do? And so sometimes that's what motivates me is like, I don't want to let my coach down, and I got coaches that I pay $1,000 an hour to, and I don't want to let them down. And
Right.
so I do I work on the things so there's that accountability aspect of it too, that, besides getting some direction, guidance, helping you discover things about yourself, that there is also that each week there's that accountability. And I find that to be super helpful for me personally. And I think also for my clients.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned how sometimes some coaches might, maybe get jealous or feel threatened by some brilliant idea that you might have, or whatever the case may be. I think in those cases, those people, I wouldn't label them as a coach. Like when I think of a coach, I think of like a baseball team, and when that team, a player on that team hits a home run, the coach is cheering with the rest of the team, right? They're excited, they're enthusiastic. They're not
Yep.
feeling threatened because their player hit a home run. They're feeling like wonderful because their player hit a home run, not threatened, right? So,
Yep.
um, maybe it's another way to look at it is that those people are maybe teachers, but also competitors in a way. That
Yeah.
they might feel threatened. You don't feel threatened if you're not competing in some way or another. So, um, those are maybe the types of people you want to avoid. I think that's maybe
Yep.
a
Oh,
lesson
absolutely.
there, right?
Yep.
Um, yeah,
Yep. It
yeah,
definitely comes out of their insecurity.
for sure. Yeah, insecurity, and for whatever purpose that they're, or whatever reason that they're insecure, really doesn't matter. That right there should tell you, hey, this person is not going to get me to be as as good as I can be. They're going to be holding me back in one way or another. Maybe they're
Oh,
giving me
absolutely.
advice that's not going to get me to where I need to be. They're not the type of person that you want to be around. So yeah, having someone in your corner, with the experiences that you've had and the folks that you've worked with, I think is important to help kind of promote the good ideas and get people to realize their full potential when they are coming to you for what the type of advice that you're giving them, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So uh, as as you've gone through this with a number of different businesses, I'm sure there's some folks, maybe they're in the military, maybe they're not, who are looking to start a business, or maybe they have a business and they're looking to uh, grow it and get to that next level, get over that next hump that they um, uh, might be dealing with. Um, Two questions. One, what advice do you have for those folks who are maybe they're standing in their own way and they don't know how to get out of their own way? And then how do they get in touch with you to find out more about the type of work that you do?
So they can contact me through my they can find me on social media, Sean Knudsen on Facebook, or Mount or Warrior Mindset Strategies on Instagram. I think you got the link somewhere, but
Yes, yeah, and I'll put those links in the show notes as well for folks
perfect,
too. So
perfect. And anybody that comes to me, what I do is I actually do a free session with them, and I actually the free session is one of my favorites because it's a discovery session where we just work on getting very clear in that 45 minutes what it is that they really want and what things are holding them back.
okay,
And it's very, for people, everyone that I've done it with, it's very like a very inspirational experience. Even people that, and you have to find the right coach for you. And I do not get offended at all if somebody doesn't want to work with me, because I only want to work with the people that are feel energetically drawn to me. Just like, there's coaches that I've had that weren't great for me, and I didn't work with, and I discontinued working with them. So, but as far as the taking the first step is, it's just, we sometimes get in our heads and we think too much. Sometimes we just have to trust our body, trust our heart, and just take that step. Whether the step is to call me, call somebody, like maybe there's somebody in your life that you like what they're doing and you've always wanted to do that. Maybe the next step for you is to actually call that person and say, "Hey, I love what you do. I'm interested. Could I find out more about it?" And
yeah,
maybe they can direct you to the person if they can't help you themselves. But um, you know, we we sometimes think that we have to know all the answers, and that we like, for instance, I since I left kind of this year, so I also turned 50. I've gotten into painting, and I've always loved painting. I never did it. I've always loved looking at painting and seeing people paint, but I always thought painters and artists were like these naturally, it was just, they were just born that way. And there are some people that just, you put a pen in their hand and these little kids start drawing. But the majority of the people, they go to somebody and learn. So I've been learning how to paint from other people, and I'm now surprising myself with, oh my goodness, that looks really cool. So I've given paintings to people. It's the same thing in business. Like, you get this idea that, oh, hey, I want to do this, but I don't know how. But we almost have this feeling like I should know how. If this was my calling in life, I would automatically know how to do it. And that is absolutely not the case. Like, you need to go talk to somebody. If it's not me, go talk to somebody and find out how to do the thing that you want to do. LeBron James has like 5 to 10 different coaches, and
right,
not one of those coaches could beat him in basketball, but all of them help him be the best basketball player he can be. He's got like a free throw coach, a strength coach, conditioning coach, mindset coach, like all these different kind of coaches. Presidents have coaches. All of the top leaders in the world, all of the biggest businessmen, they all have coaches that help them with different things. So there's things that people are good at, and those people can help you with what it is you want to do. So finding those people, whether it's painting or mixed martial arts or starting a business, whatever it is, right now, take that step to reach out to someone who's doing what you want to do and just have a conversation with them.
yeah. And there's a saying, and I don't know who said it or where it came from. I just remember hearing it, so I'm going to regurgitate it here. But if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so that mindset is like, okay, yeah, you can go real fast, but you're probably not going to get very far with that by going alone. You want to take this business to that next level. You want to bring it to a point where it can start growing. You're going to have to start trusting some other people and bring some other people on. Maybe,
Yep.
maybe that's bring on some coaches. Maybe it's hiring your first employee. Maybe it's whatever it is. It's bringing those people in and learning how to trust that those people are going to do their jobs. And you know what? It's okay if they're not. Let them go and move
Yep.
on to that next one, right? And
Absolutely.
then eventually, just like trying or finding 10,000 ways that didn't work, you'll find that certain employees are not going to work, or certain coaches are not going to work for you. Um, Guess what? You've just discovered that that person doesn't work for you. Move on and let it go. And it's not the end of the world, right? So, um, great advice, I think, so far with all of this. I think, individuals who are looking to get some assistance with their business, definitely check out the services. And again, I'll have the links in the show notes for folks to check it out. And that way, um, you're not going alone. You're not trying to just wing it and figure it out with all these unknown obstacles in the way, that you're now going to have to, try to scramble to get around when they eventually pop up. So, definitely reach out and at least have that initial consultation. Get the juices flowing, get the thoughts going, and hopefully points you in the right direction. So, before we wrap this episode up, I always love doing a segment that I call "Is It Service Connected?" and it always gets a laugh whenever I have a veteran on the show. So I always try to save the segment for the veteran guests, where we get to watch a video of service members doing something stupid, or falling down, getting hurt, kind of America's Funniest Home Video style. It's not
Perfect.
nothing too crazy. We're not looking like someone's blowing themselves up with a grenade that they
Yeah.
dropped at their feet or something like that. It's just usually something we can laugh about. It's something funny.
Yeah.
So, so I'm going to pull this video up here so you can check it out as well, and then we can laugh together at
Perfect. Let's do
what's
it.
about to happen here. So, for the audio listeners who can't see what's going on right now, it's kind of a little bit blurry right now, but it looks like we're inside of a tent. Military tent. Looks like they got their clothes like kind of hanging up on a wire,
Yeah.
drying or whatever. Maybe some racks, and looks like a guy's like kind of falling into the side here. I'm going to stop talking about it though. I'm going to hit play, and we'll see what happens.
When the storm hit this army camp,
So it looks
everyone
like a
inside quickly
storm or
realized that the
something is
entire
blowing
tent was
this
about to
tent.
fly
Oh my
away. So
gosh! And
everyone put
you
in
got,
their efforts holding down
it
the
looks like
tent
an
in any
entire
way
platoon
possible.
almost is grabbing
Yeah.
the sides of this tent and trying to hold it down to keep it from blowing away.
Eventually,
Oh my
the storm
gosh!
passed, and they actually prevented the
That
tent from
that
flying
has to be
away.
an awful experience. Could you?
So the best one was the guy. I don't know if you saw. He's laying in his cot.
Yeah,
Didn't even get up. He's grabbing it.
he's just grabbing
I
the
couldn't,
cot. Yeah, he's
couldn't even get out of his cot.
laying down, grabbing, and he's I
Yeah.
guess he's just hoping his body weight is going to be enough to
Yeah.
hold the thing down. But it seems like, um, yeah, there's a lot of other people putting a lot more effort into that to
We
pull it down, and they were like trying to like step on the posts and everything to get them down onto the ground. But yeah, that guy wasn't really uh, putting a lot of effort in. I don't see any service connection,
No, it
as
looks
far
like
as the injuries
they
there.
maybe they quit filming after that, and maybe they lost the tent, and that's where the service related injuries.
If that tent took off and
Oh,
anyone was still hanging on, yeah, then
yeah, and
we're talking about some definite injuries there.
those metal tents. I mean, they're not light.
No, they're
We
not.
we did a field FTX in the wintertime, so it was about 2 feet of snow. It was freezing cold, and we went back after we're doing some convoy operations, delivering some ammo and different things that night. Went back to our tents, and the wind had blown them away,
Oh wow,
and where they were at was covered with snow.
yeah.
We literally just sat there staring at these things we had to get up at like we had to be ready to go at like 06, and this was like probably around 2200, about 2300. And so we
So
had
not a lot
another
of time.
tent. Fortunately, we had another tent as we had to get out in this blizzard, put up the other tent, and we ended up tying it to the vehicles to try to save this one. But it was a miserable night.
Yeah, well, I was infantry, so we rarely saw tents. It was not often that we had a tent. I think outside of our pre-deployment training when we
Yeah.
were going through some of that stuff where there were just tents already set up. The only time I
Yep.
think I ever had a tent to sleep in overnight when we were out in the field was at the Warrior Leader course.
Ah,
When we were doing, I think we
yeah,
were doing like a
that's
land nav
great.
or something like that, and we were out,
Yeah.
in the woods, um,
Yep.
and there was a tent. I was like, "What the hell is this thing?" Like, like that's where I'm supposed to sleep, on the grass right there. But I mean, even when it was the winter time, like you're talking with all the snow and everything,
Yeah.
we'd sleep in the middle of the snow, and
That's
we'd
so
figure it
funny.
out. One time I actually, we set up. It had snowed, um, but we were on kind of like a slight hill, like it was just like a slight decline, um, and set up everything. I ended up waking up down the hill, because
Oh,
everything had
geez.
frozen over, and my sleeping bag slid down the hill, and I woke up. I was in the middle of this thorn bush, and I'm trying to get out of this thing, and I'm like getting prickers all over me. It's cold, and I'm angry, and I'm all my shit's at the top of the hill. I'm just so angry. Um, yeah, if I didn't get service connection for all that, then those guys didn't get it for dealing with
Yeah,
their stupid tent that
that's
they
pretty
shouldn't have
funny.
had anyways. Those jerks.
Yeah, that's pretty
So,
funny.
anyways, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and sharing what it is that you do, and how you're continuing to help folks out with setting up their businesses and getting that up and running. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On podcast. If you want to support the show, please check out Scott's book, Surviving Son, on Amazon. All of the sales from that book go directly back into this podcast and work to help veterans in need. You can also follow the Drive On podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.